Hello, and thanks for joining me again for one of my brilliant YouTube videos. I'm hoping this will reach people all over the world and help to inspire some people to take a different look at the economic strata of our species and critique it in the right ways and value it in the right way too. Not by regulating tax or inflation necessarily, but by shutting down sort of corporate monopolies and supporting local economies and small business. One of the things that does this very well is a combination or a mathematical equation called M times V equals P times T. Please don't stop the video. That might have sounded really boring to you. God, look at my black eye. That might have sounded really boring to you and made you think, oh my God, I don't want to watch anything about economics, but it's really interesting if you actually think about it. Whether you're a lefty or a righty or a woke liberal, left-leaning centrist, you'll find it interesting and you probably haven't heard it before. So here's a diatribe of M times V equals P times T and how that's like could be a good thing. The government spending money on us could actually sort us out as well as sorting us out, if that makes sense. The engine of exchange is what the AI split out for me today. Demystifying the economics of money, universal basic income, and the real economy. Think of the economy not as a giant vault of cash, but as the plumbing system of a massive city. The wealth of that city isn't just determined by how much water is sitting in the reservoir, it is determined by how fast and how smoothly that water flows through the pipes to the homes, farms, and businesses that need it. To understand how this flow works, economists used a foundational concept called the equation of exchange, which is M times V equals P times T. So decoding that equation, at its core, this equation states a simple truth. The total amount of money spent in an economy must equal the total value of everything bought. Here is what the letters actually mean. So M is money supply. That means the total amount of currency existing in the economy at any given moment. V, the interesting bit, is the velocity of money. So that's how fast that money changes hands. If you buy a coffee for a fiver, the barista uses the same fiver to tip a cab driver, and the driver uses it to buy a sandwich. A single £5 note just facilitated £15 worth of economic activity. That's a high velocity. So price level, the average cost of goods and services, not complicated. Transactions, the total volume of actual stuff being bought and sold, so goods, services, and labour. The left side of the equation, M times V, represents buying power. The right side represents the total cost of the real economy. If the left side goes up, the right side must go up to balance it out. So why universal basic income could supercharge the economy? When politicians talk about the economy, they only focus on entirely on M, printing money, taxing, or borrowing. But the secret engine of a booming economy is actually V, velocity. That's what really matters, not how much money there is, but how fast it moves around the economy, creating wealth and jobs and prosperity. When wealth is concentrated at the top, velocity drops. A billionaire does not buy 10,000 pairs of trousers. They invest their surplus in wealth and static assets like stocks or offshore accounts. The money sits, velocity goes down. Universal basic income completely flips this dynamic. If you give a guaranteed income to everyday working people, they do not hoard it. They spend it immediately on groceries, rent, fixing the car, or buying a new pair of shoes. By putting money directly into the hands of people who need to spend it, universal basic income causes a massive spike in the velocity of money. Looking back at our equation, if V shoots up, the left side is suddenly much larger to balance the equation. The right side must grow. Critics argue that this just causes inflation, that price level P will skyrocket, but that only happens if a society is fundamentally broken and can't produce anything. So like if an economy is healthy and businesses want to make a profit, they will respond to this new wave of customer demand by increasing production. They will hire more workers, build more products, and provide more services, not less. In other words, transactions do go up. Universal basic income doesn't just hand out money, it acts as a massive stimulus for the velocity of money, which forces transactions to grow, creating wealthier, more active society. So the illusion of restrictive government spending. So if an economy can grow simply by keeping money moving, why are governments always claiming they're broke? Why is state spending treated like a restrictive burden that must be paid for through crushing taxation? This brings us on to the constraints of fiat currency and fractional reserve banking. In our current system, the government doesn't actually create most of the money. Private banks create the vast majority of our money, and our money supply, that's completely out of thin air when they issue loans. Because our money is birthed as debt, it always carries a restrictive burden of interest. In this environment, when a government wants to spend on public works or universal basic income, it usually has to borrow this from debt-based system, putting taxpayers on the hook to pay it back. However, fiat currency, money declared legal, tendered by government, unconnected to physical commodities like gold, is fundamentally just a public utility. It's a token to measure and facilitate trade. It doesn't have any value. So in a system freed from the artificial constraints of fractional reserve banking, money isn't a scarce resource you simply have to borrow from private banks. It's simply a tool. Government spending isn't a restrictive debt burden so long as the real physical economy, the workers, the factories and the raw materials, has the capacity to meet the demand. As long as the productive capacity, transactions, is there, the government can fund initiatives like universal basic income to keep the velocity high, treating money not as a debt to be feared, but as water to keep the city alive. And that's the end of the video.